Hey, it's Steve. Well, do you have an unhealthy obsession with Kato Unitrack like I do and use it for all of your layout projects? Well, one problem that always comes up is how should you secure it? Should you nail it or screw it down? Should you use hot glue, white glue, latex caulk? What are the different options and what are the best ones for your project? We're going to cover all that in this video. Okay, so I have a sample board here with a few pieces of Kato Unitrack and different options we can use to secure it. So one thing that I like to use a lot is hot glue. So I have the hot glue gun ready to go. We'll go over using this. I also have some regular white latex caulk. Color doesn't really matter, but any type of simple latex caulk is going to be an option as well. Just get the regular latex caulk. Don't use the silicone caulk. It can be, just a lot more messy to use because it is silicone. I also have my big jug of white glue. I don't have any small bottles of it. I just typically buy these big bulk white glue jugs, pour it into a little cup when I need it, and then go from there. And I also have some small nails that we can use to secure the track as well. So I'm going to start off using nails, and then we'll go to the different options beyond that. Okay, so if you want to actually nail or screw down Unitrack, there's actually two different options. So if you are using something like a T-track module, typically those are actually pre-drilled to match up with the holes on the back of the Unitrack, at least for the track pieces that are typically used on those T-track modules. And so you can actually just take the screws and put them right up through the bottom of the base and then into these holes here and secure it that way, and that works pretty well. If you don't have a pre-drilled T-track module, it's pretty hard to actually drill up from underneath and secure this track. So if you are going to try to drill up through the base and put some screws up into the bottom of the Unitrack so you don't see anything on the top, the problem you have to figure out is where do you drill the holes so they match up. So an easy way to do that is to take either some paint or a Sharpie of some type and get a lot of ink on there, get it pressed down exactly where you need the track, and you should see two marks just like that. And then you can just take your drill the holes there, and then put the screws up through the bottom, and they will line up with those holes, and you'll be in good shape to secure the track. Now, if you don't want to screw up through the bottom, because that is actually kind of a pain to do, it's a lot of work to mark everything out, drill the holes, and so forth, you can also nail it down. But obviously, you need to know where to put the nail. And you can actually put it anywhere you want, but you want to always pre-drill a hole for any type of small nail. Otherwise, you're going to wreck your track. And so ideally, you want to use these holes that are already here, and you can just take a small drill bit and a pin vise and go through and just basically drill out through the other side of the track. And it takes very little effort to do this. It's already almost all the way through as it is. So you have to just basically get it to go through the track there. And these little finish nails are the only nails that I have, so you can get track nails that are going to be a little bit better for this, but I'll just use this for an example. And then you can just put those in there and use your hammer. Now you don't want to smash your track, so you want to always have this is a really beat up one, but a nail set to actually finish hammering your nails all the way through. And you're pretty much ready to go. This works really well. Your track is going to be super secure. It's not going to move around. And the nails, for the most part, aren't that noticeable, especially if you do have ones that are really small and blend in well with the ballast and everything else. And you can obviously paint those so they blend in even better, and you really can't see them. Now, if you're wondering, I have the claw on the back of this little hammer taped up with some duct tape, because this was a hammer that typically my son would use when he was small. And so I didn't want him to like whack himself in the forehead with the claw, which was pretty sharp. And so I put the tape on there just so it would be a little bit safer to use for him. Anyway, that's one option to use. Now, one of my favorite options is to use hot glue, but there are some downsides to using the hot glue. So one thing with the Kato Unitrack is that the inside is all pretty much hollow. You have basically a couple options for gluing. You can put glue on these little nubs where you would screw or nail through, or you can put it where the rail joiners connect there, and that is an option as well. Now, you can obviously put glue on the outside edges, but that tends to look kind of messy, and so I like to avoid having any glue at all there. Now, you can obviously just fill in a big glob of glue right here in the middle, and then that will work in terms of securing your track pretty well. But generally, I just like to put globs of glue around where these nubs are or where the rail joiners are. And then you can just set that down. And when the glue is hot, it'll actually run back down. But if it's around those little nubs, it will grab onto those as well as to whatever your base is, and it will secure it pretty well. Now, this glue is pretty hot, so it's going to take a little while to set. Now, one of the disadvantages with using the hot glue, and this can also be an advantage in some cases as well, is that the glue obviously can really get everywhere, and it can cause some problems with your connections. If you do have a thicker glob of glue under, say, where your rail joiners are, you might get a little hump where they're raised up slightly, where that rail joiner is, and that can cause you to have problems with operations. At the same time, though, if you have a situation where you have a dip, say you're using foam scenery, and there's just it got damaged or just depressed or whatever, and you have like a shallow dip in your foam right underneath where your rail joiner is, to where your track is going to kind of flex a little bit over that little gap in the foam, you can basically put a big glob of hot glue in there, put some weights on your track to keep it pretty much straight and level, and then that glue will fill in the void and provide a solid surface for your track. But just make sure everything is flat and level and you don't have any humps or dips or whatever in your track. Okay, so the next option is to use some latex caulk. Basically, the caulk is going to work the same as any other type of adhesive, so it's kind of like using white glue or something else. The advantage of the caulk over using something like white glue is that it does give you an immediate grab that is not super secure, but it does help keep everything in place a lot faster than using regular white glue does, just because it does have a pretty good density and stickiness to it, and so your track will kind of stay in place faster than with white glue. And it applies pretty easily, and it's pretty easy to use. Now, typically the way I do it is, assuming you have your track in place, normally you take a pencil, a marker, whatever, mark out where your track is going to be located on whatever surface you have. Then you can apply your caulk along that surface. And so what I like to do, assuming your track lines are marked out, I just get one of these little plastic putty knives. This one's actually kind of beat up and old, but it's great for doing this. And essentially just put a bead of caulk down and then just spread it out so it covers the edges of where the track line is. Try to get it as smooth as possible so you don't have any lumps or other things that are going to cause your track to be uneven. And then you can just set your track down in that caulk, press it down good. And because, again, the caulk is pretty sticky, it doesn't move very much right away, and you get a nice, good, firm grab. So this can be a nice, good way to actually not just attach your track, but other things as well if you do need kind of like that quick grab to make it a little bit faster to do your installation. It dries pretty quickly, and it will secure your track very, very nicely. Typically, this is more than enough to secure your track. And again, it secures it very quickly. It doesn't move very much, even right after you put it down. So that's the really nice big advantage with latex caulk, is that really fast, quick grab. And this is a great option for any type of track, whether it's Atlas track or Pico track or whatever. Definitely a good option. If you are using anything besides one of these tracks that have the roadbed attached, typically you're not going to want to use hot glue to secure your Atlas track or your Pico track, because you're going to see the glue underneath there and it's going to come up through the ties, and you're not going to be able to put ballast there, and it's going to be kind of a big mess. So definitely do not use the hot glue method if you have anything besides a track that has a attached roadbed material. Okay, so the last option is just to simply use white glue. This is basically exactly the same here as using the latex caulk. Again, you want to know where your track is going to be. So, assuming on your layout you have your track marked, you can pour out a little bit of glue. Normally I just pour glue into a cup and use a brush or whatever to apply it as I need to. But in this case, I'll just pour a big glob that has a lot more than I need. But same idea, you spread it out, make a huge mess like this, and then you can apply your track in the glue, and it will be quite secure. But again, the main difference between doing this method and using the caulk is that with the white glue, you're not going to get that immediate quick grab. Now, the big advantage of using white glue, if you think you might have to adjust your track, it's much better to use the white glue than the latex caulk. And the reason for that is that the white glue can be softened, especially if you use rubbing alcohol. Or I have one of these spray bottles that have 91% alcohol in it. If your glue is set, it's already hard and it's been there for weeks, you can just spray everything down with the alcohol and that will soften the glue even if it's been set for weeks. And it will allow you to easily remove the track that is, that has been in place there. And so you can do this anytime you want. Even after you've had a fully complete layout, if you want to save the track, you can spray everything down, let it sit there for a while, spray it again, and then remove all of your track and clean it up in the sink, or basically get like a tub, put a bunch of alcohol and water in there, let it sit in there, and then you can scrape everything off and clean it up and reuse it pretty easily. If you have the latex caulk, you can still remove this as well. You have to kind of cut it and pry it up a little bit, but it's very easy to use the white glue and the alcohol to readjust things. Now, that can also be a disadvantage if you are going to come through and ballast your track and you're going to do the typical thing where you put the ballast down and then you spray everything with alcohol or something like that as a wetting agent to allow the glue that you then put down to flow easier. That alcohol can soften the glue and allow your track to move around a little bit. Now with Kato track, that everything's a fixed radius. It's not going to really adjust too much. But if you have flex track, that might shift if the glue softens. That can be a problem. So one thing to consider there. But anyway, these are all good options for securing your track. If you have a wood base, having everything nailed down is a nice option. It's very secure. But again, you can see the nail heads, and that makes it perhaps a little bit less realistic looking in that sense. The hot glue is very fast. It's very secure. Just be careful you don't put too much glue around the rail joiner areas where you might create some unevenness in your track joints. The latex caulk is a great option for pretty much any type of track, and one that I do like to use a lot as well. White glue can be a good fallback as well for a lot of different scenarios. One last thing about the caulk is, again, you can use different types of caulk, but just make sure if you are attaching your track to styrofoam, whether it's the insulation foam board that a lot of people tend to use or whatever it is, make sure it is a foam safe caulk. This plain white latex caulk that you get for caulking around wood trim and things like that, that's paintable, is always going to be safe for foam, no problems there. But a lot of the construction adhesives actually will attack the foam, and so you have to be careful about that. So just make sure whatever you use is foam safe. If you're not sure, check around online and see. You can do a search and kind of find out whether that type of caulk is going to be attacking the foam if you're having your track on a foam base. But anyway, 4 great options for securing your track. Anyway, I hope this video helped you out and gave you some ideas of how you could secure your Kato Unitrack. If you're using other track products like Atlas or Pico track, you can use a lot of these same ideas using caulk or glue or whatever, but usually it's actually a little bit easier to secure those than the roadbed track because the Kato Unitrack does have a big cavity in the back. It's just a little bit harder to glue down in some cases, but overall, the same ideas apply really across the board to all different types of tracks. So anyway, I hope it helped you out, and thanks for watching. Bye.